Alright, so now that we have our Z tank sim routine in, what we're going to do is now add our logic. So for each one of these, I want you to keep in mind we have 3 tanks. We have our caffeine tank, our master recipe tank, and our current corn syrup tank. Right, similar to exactly what we talked about here. Right, so we're going to go ahead and add these in here. Now we're also going to give an effect of having the ability to refill the tanks, like if we get a truck delivery, which is a real world device, right? So we'll start out the routine. We'll add a rung, and first rung we'll do a new NOP, new operation, and we're going to go ahead and add this here. So this routine is for tank simulation only, and let's blow this up. Let's blow the screen up a little bit so you can see it better. Tank simulation only. So what we'll do is come back and finish out this descriptor, take out some of these. I'm just basically backspacing. Right, okay, so good. Alright, we have that in there. Now it's similar to what we did over on the other instance right here with the flow meters. We're just going to basically have timers and indicate up. Very, very, very simple. So again, batch active would be something that you would have in there. So have batch active. You just type it right here and it will come in. It's just that simple. So we'll have a timer, and then we're going to call this tank sim and then we'll call this, let's just say tank sim timer. That's that simple. And then we have a couple tanks we're going to do, so let's give 8 instances of this because we're going to use a couple of these for different things. This will be the first one we're going to use as number 1, and then we're going to count this up. So this would be 47 milliseconds. This is the scan rate of the task again, so that's the perfect timing of the task, so that way you know, and that way we have that in there. So let's do that, and let's come in here, and then let's do this right here, and another one shot right here. We'll come in and do this just like what we did before, right? So very, very, very similar all together what we did before. Now this would be going up and down. So this would be tank sim ons. So we'll make a variance of these 32. So 32 of those. Even though we're not going to use all of them, we're just basically building out a buffer of tags, right? So we're building out a buffer of data that we can possibly use in the future. All right, so now we want to go into our math, right? So we'll do our math, and we can do a compute, but let's just do an add because we're going to do an add subtract. So this will be, keep in mind, we have our tanks. We called our first tank the master recipe. So we'll just get the name right here, master recipe tank, and then we'll say level, and then this is going to be a real. So a real is just a decimal of, like, say a dent is a real world is the actual number, a whole number, right, without a decimal. And a real is a whole number with a decimal, right? So if we want to have a decimal point in our number, we definitely want to have it as a real. Now we're going to have this as a constant, so this will be tank sim, and we're going to have this as an add. This is the add, so this would be the fill of the tank. So this is the fill of the tank, so we'll call this fill. Let's call this tank sim fill, or fill sim constant. and then again we'll have that as a real, just in case. That way we'll have it just like this. Now we can change the variance of this. We'll go to edit and then go into the tag structure, and we can actually, this is the reason why we would have this very minute, so we can slow it down. And I would do this by 5 just to show that counting up. This is the tank level up. Okay, so if we actually did that right now, we could do the tank level up. If we did batch active, and what we could do too is have this simulation bit in here as well. So sim active, so we'll copy this bit, come over here, throw this bit in here as well, paste it in there, and then make sure it's sim active. So here's the cool part to this. That way we know that the bit that this routine is being scanned, right? Right now this routine is not being scanned because this bit is not high, but this right here indicates if we are or not, right? So we could turn it on and simulate it. So now we'll do active, and now we're indicating up, right, by 5. And let's change that. That still is a little quick, so let's change that by, because I want to kind of give almost a real world, I mean close to it enough where it doesn't actually hinder everybody from, like, or it takes too long where it's a problem, you know. So this will be the fill. So this is counting up. So okay, so this is good, and we want to have this as the fill, so we're going to have this as, we're going to add in another bit that says it is in fill. So tank fill active, and this is going to be indicate if it's, you know, actually coming in and being filled up or emptied out, right? So now we need to have another one that we're going to basically utilize the same bit. And if you don't have the bits, if these bits are finalized and you want to use them and you want to drag them down to a bit that you're editing, you can just drag it down. Now if you do that while both are on, then it's basically, or both are being in edit mode, then it's going to remove it from there. It's going to take it. So make sure you know that. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that out, finalize these again, so that way you can see that again in a nice controlled environment, because that's the best way to teach. And okay, so we're going to get that here, and we're going to say this is going to be tank, actually this is going to be coming off of whether or not the pump is on. So we'll come back and get these controls in a little bit after we do the AV01 stuff, right, or the actual premix tanks controls. We'll come back and get this in a little bit, but what we'll do is, for now, we'll call this Z place holder for AV01. That way we can at least know what we're doing, right? So, and then we'll come back and have to change out the tag when we do that. But the Z, again, you'll see this commonly used when I do programming, and when other people do programming, you'll see something like this. But it's basically just a placeholder. So I'm calling out the tag as a placeholder name. So in this instance, we want to actually come in and do a subtract, and we're going to do our a one shot again. So our one shot. Now, being that I want to use the one shots, I don't really care if they're going to be in line with, you know, one shot this one, you know, like this being the top 1 tank, this being 2 tank, this being 3 tank. I don't really care. I'm just using multiple instances of the tank simulation. So we're going to take this, come out here and take that against each other. Then we're going to say this is the tank sim, or tank empty sim constant. Okay, so this is the constant we're going to use. Now the cool thing about this is that being that we have our flow meters and our flow rates the same, we can also come in here and have this matching our flow rate, our flow meter for that matter. But in the instance of what we're doing, and I'll show you this in just a second. So in the flow meters, if you recall, we had this, we could actually use this because we could, the constant of the flow meter is going to be the constants of the tanks out. But we need to have those matching, is what I'm getting at. So this is perfectly fine. Let's go ahead, and you can always do this. You can always edit it here and then come back and make it a constant if you're the one doing the programming. That way nobody can come behind you right here and change it. Okay, so now if we want to empty the tank, then we'll turn on the simulation. So what we need to be aware of too is, now that we have a placeholder for our AVO1 on, we need to make sure we have this in place of here. So we're controlling the up and we're controlling the down. Okay, so we want to make sure that we know that the AVO1 is not on when we're filling. We don't want to cavitate a tank, or we don't want to do anything like that, right? So for this instance, what we're going to do is do this, and now we're going to come in and start taking away from our pump, our tank, right? So we're taking away, resetting that, right? Okay, so, and then what we want to do is, if it's at 0, so we want to stop it too. We want to make sure that, let's actually toggle that off, and we want to make sure that compare, so we're going to do a compare, which we haven't talked about compare, but what I want to do is actually say, is let you know that if it's less than, right? So this, and using a compare, we're going to say if it's less than, or if it's greater than, in our instance, if the tank level is greater than 0, then we want to use it. So now let's zero out our tank level and show that again, right? So now we're going to come in here, simulate the fill again, just so we see a populated value. Okay, so it's filling now, and then if we were to turn the fill off and have AVO1 turned on, we're going to come in here and empty it, and you see it did still shoot past, so it has to be greater than. So we need to have, what we can do to stop this is just say greater than, and we're indicating a 1, because it's subtracted by 1. Okay, so I understand exactly why that did happen, because our values here were not lined up with our values here. So what happens is, as far as that goes, is it was trying to, now it did stop, but it did still go negative, but it tried to stop. And what we can do here is we can either push a value in here, but here's the problem, is we're moving forward and filling the tank in 1/4 of a pound, and then we're subtracting a whole pound. So with that instance being there, what we can do is make the whole thing 1/4 of a value, right? So let's come in here and edit this. Actually, let's not do that. I don't want to teach you that practice. I want you to teach you going through the actual monitoring. Let's make this 1/4 as well, and then we'll come in here to our flow meter simulate, and our flow meter simulate, we need to have it as 1/4 as well. So I have to go back into each one of these and change this to the flow, because I want everything to be matched up perfectly. And let's see why that didn't take. Oh, because it is a here's the okay, so if you need to change the value of something, it's like this is a dent. We made this a dent earlier. If we need to change it, we need to go offline and change it. So let's do that real quick. Let's go offline. Let's change this value, edit this, and change it to a dent, to a real, which is perfectly fine. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and download. Actually, let's make sure we have our, okay, so all of our rungs are good. We'll download this. So if you have to change a tag value, you either have to change the tag altogether, like the data type of a tag. You have to go offline, change it, and then download it back. Or you could have just made a brand new tag. But in the instance of what we're doing, for the speed simplicity of it, we want to go ahead and do this as well. Just go offline, edit the tag value, and then change it. So all these are defaulted to 0 right now. So let's come in here and put our values in here. So 25. And this is the reason why I like to use a reel, because I can control how fast and how slow the simulation is. And this one would be now point. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so now all of them are good, and let's test this out one more time just so you can see it. We're going to fill this up, and this is just the first tank, so we still need to do this for each tank. Okay, so we need to have our fill active on. So our fill active is on. It is actually indicating that it is filling up. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll do a placeholder. We're going to do the placeholder for AVO1. So AVO1, let's say it's cut on, it's going to simulate down, and now it will go to a proper value, right? So now it's going to go down to 0 and not do anything below 0. So, and the reason is it shot past 0 before is because we were taking out a pound and we were putting in less than a pound. We were putting in a quarter of a pound. So you see that working perfectly. Okay, so that is tank 1. Okay, so we'll actually duplicate the same thing for all the tanks. So we're going to come in and duplicate the same thing for all the tanks. So we'll highlight each one of these. We'll shift, just hold the shift key, copy, and then paste. Okay, now I want to do a add rung, a no operation to give a separation between each one of these. Okay, so then it doesn't matter if I have the simulation right here. I can use the same one if I want to, but let's just go ahead for the sake of what we're doing and have this as simulation 2. That way we keep a good solid understanding about what's what. And the second tank would be, again, the second tank is going to be what tank did we say it was? Is the syrup tank. Okay, so this is going to be the syrup tank, and this is the placeholder for AVO2. And what we'll do, so let's go ahead and change this tag, is I'm going to go ahead and just paste this in here, and I'm going to take out the spaces. And notice it's not valid. It has a 0 indication. It has a question mark. I can hover over it and click new tag and then change the data type. So there's another way to make a tag too. You can just type it out, right? And now it's good. So just that, change that here, change that here. So this is the reason why I wanted to show you that, is because there's multiple instances of ways to do things, right? I want to change all these to make sure they line up. And they're not, you don't want to have double instances of using something somewhere. So I don't want to have 2 of the tank sim ons 1, right? I don't have 2 of those because they're going to overwrite each other, and I don't want, the program's not going to work the correct way, right? So it's not going to functionally work. Let's cut this simulation off. Okay, so there's that, just to kind of get rid of that. So then there's a placeholder for AVO2, because AVO2 would be the corn syrup, AVO2 right here. So we'll come in here, place that in there for placeholder 2, and now we have that in there. So this is good, this is good, this is good. And we changed the name here, but again, we need to make the tag new. So just like it shows, if I were to come in here and do this, it shows an undefined tag, and then it shows me where it's at, right? So that's a good solid understanding of where it's at. So I'm just going to make the tag real quick as a placeholder. Come in here, do that. And then we'll do the same exact thing. We'll shift and then click on all 3 of the rungs we want to copy them, come over here, paste them, and then go on rung 7, add another one. This is going to be a no operation, right? I'm moving kind of quick now because, again, I'm trying to keep the video at a certain length, and apologize for those that are that know what they're at, right? Then we're going to come in here, utilize this. This is going to be the done bit. This is the done bit. This is going to be the actual 5. This is going to be 6. I drag it down so I know where I'm at. And this is going to be the caffeine tank. So we're going to copy that name. And now you see why I use the notepad so much. So the caffeine tank. And paste that in there. And we'll come back and edit that one tag too, because I noticed it was wrong. Make that new, and make sure your data types, even if you're going fast like this, make sure your data types are correct, okay? You don't want to have to go offline like we just did. So I'm gonna edit this one because it says tank. You guys probably caught that when I did it, but I didn't. So then there's that. We'll put that here. Caffeine tank, good. Caffeine tank, good. And this will be the AVO5. Okay. This would be AVO5. Placeholder for AVO5. Cool. Done. Now we'll add the new tag. New tag is in there. And then we have all of our stuff in here now. Okay, so we can do like a tank simulation as far as the tanks filling, and fill all the tanks just like we get a truck delivery. And then we'll come in here and put a indicator in here to what they are. So this would be let's see, let's get the names up here. This is the caffeine tank, I think. Call this caffeine. Sorry about that. Yeah, apologize for that. Caffeine tank simulation logic. Put that like that. Take out this. Okay, that right there. And now we have that. Okay, good. So we'll do this. Good. Now we have the simulation logic right here. We have it, we're indicating our simulation logic. This is going to be the corn syrup tank. So let's get this. And I'm just doing this so that we can get it quicker. Corn syrup tank simulation. Good. And then we'll do the same thing up here. So this would be the master tank. Okay, change that to master tank simulation logic. And it's done just like that. So now we have our situation. We have our simulation in here. We have all of our stuff in here for filling, and all of our stuff in here for like tank filling. And then we would have all of our stuff in here for subtracting as well, for taking when we take the stuff out of there. So we'll go ahead and fill them up too. Also too, one thing I wanted to highlight too is the fills. We don't want to fill over 100%. So what we need to do is come in here and add a less than. So we'll do a less than, and then we'll do the tank level, and then we'll say less than 100%. And then we'll do the same thing here. So we'll copy this and do the same thing here, paste it, and then get the tank, actual tank level that we're using, because we don't want to exceed the level of 100%. So that would be overfilling the tank, right? So we don't want to do that. Okay, so now we have this in here. All right, so now we should not exceed, so let's go and indicate the tank fill. We should not exceed the level of 100, right? So we're going to do a level of 100. So the high level is 100, and the low level is 0. So we're going to fill it up to 100%, and then we're going to empty it out to it's actually 0. So when it comes down to it, this is just simulation logic. This is merely just simulation logic for the tank simulation of the level controls. Again, this is something similar to what you would do if you were doing something, you know, inside of like an OEM, and you're like building it off of site. You don't have the devices to do it with, or if you just want to merely test it yourself as a technician or a engineer or just programmer or in general and trying to learn yourself. This is something you could do. So you see, now we went up to 100%. So now it's no longer going to fill. This is the reason why I wanted to do that. So all the tanks now are at 100%, which is absolutely great. Okay, so the batch is active. I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to cut tank fill off. So what we can do too is actually come in here and turn the tank fill off. What we can do is say if the tanks are at 100%, we can turn the tank fill off. Okay, so we can add that in here at the very bottom. Is we can add a rung to say the tank level is off. So unlatch the tank fill. Right. So if the tanks are at a 100%, so if any one of the tanks are at 100%, we can cut that off. Or if we can say all of them in that instance, we can say if all of them are equal to. So I compare then again, and we'll do an equal to. And we'll Control C, Control V twice, and we'll get the caffeine tank. We'll get the, oh, this is caffeine tank again. We'll get the syrup tank. So you can drag this down just like this. Get the tanks. And sometimes it takes a little bit where you have to, yeah, scroll, like move it around. Sometimes it doesn't want to do right. Let's just move this. Let's just type it in. Master tank level, and we'll say 100%, 100%, and 100%. So then it will unlatch that bit. So now if we come in here and we were to, I'm gonna do the simulation on again. And then we're going to take a little bit out of the tank just so you can see that this will unlatch this bit. Okay, so it gets to 100% and it unlatches that bit. So that is a lot better on our simulation. So I'm sorry, this program or this video kind of ran a little bit long, but when it comes down to it, having a detailed understanding of why you're simulating and how you're simulating is very, very, very valuable. And how to do this is often a thought process. It could be done a million different ways. I could have did this in structure text. I could have did this in function block. I could have did this in many different other programming languages, even sequential function chart. But in the case of what we're doing, the easiest thing to understand is ladder logic. Okay, so this is what we wanted to deploy. We wanted to come in and understand how to actually do simulation logic. Just this simple. So hopefully that was a lot of good solid information that helped you understand. And if you guys have to, go back and watch it again. I know it was long. I appreciate your support. I understand how, how it is to sit here and watch videos and stuff like that of somebody else doing something. Hopefully you are one of the ones that are using this stuff and doing it as we're doing it, so you understand. So you can build this stuff. You can actually watch as it's doing it. You can pause the video. You can build the logic. Go back, run the logic, and see and accomplish the same thing we're doing just as we're doing it. So with all that said, we'll see you guys on the next one.